All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and get this started. So, guys, I want to welcome you to the first ever From Pixels to Plastic panel. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Pixel Dan. I do a lot of toy stuff online. I'm a big toy collector. I love video games too, and that's what kind of was the inspiration behind not only this panel, but also the first ever video series I started doing online, which I still continue to this day, which is called From Pixels to Plastic. And the whole idea behind that series is to take a look at toys and various merchandise that is spawned from video games. Something that I personally have always found very interesting ever since I was a kid. So I put together this fun little panel just to kind of talk about the history of toys and fun merchandise and stuff like that that's all come from video games, the things that we love to play. I suckered these two both into sitting on this panel with me. They might look like deer in headlights up here, but I thought it'd be fun to. So if you guys want to introduce yourselves.
Yeah. Hey, I'm John D'Elia. I'm from RetroWare TV.
And I'm Joey Rudisena from Clan the Grey Wolf and RetroWare TV. I do shows like 16-Bit Gems and The Way Games Work, and I don't know what toys are.
I have some game toys. I have a few.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. I always have found, I'm a big toy collector, but I'm also a big gamer too. I've always played video games. I love the retro stuff. And one of the things I've always kind of noticed in the whole crossover genres, it seems like everybody that collects toys probably also plays video games, but not everybody that plays video games collects toys. But there's probably at least one thing that you might pick up here and there. Maybe you see some cool piece of merchandise, some neat little action figure. Maybe there's a pre-order bonus that you got and you've put on your shelf from a favorite game of yours. But then there are guys like me who like video games so much that he wants to have cool action figures based on those fun games that he played. And one of the big things when I was growing up, I used to, I was an NES kid, and I played Mega Mans and all these games like that, and I wanted action figures based on these games, and they didn't really exist back then.
And anything that did wasn't exactly...
Yeah, right, and they weren't like real action figures. There are some fun things, and we'll get to that when I'm going to kind of show you guys some cool stuff on slideshows. But, a lot of the stuff that did come out was also like, Japan did have a lot of merchandise and stuff like that for their games. Yeah. So as kids, it's not like we could go out and import a bunch of cool toys and action figures from Japan to play with. We were kind of stuck without really having anything. But one of the first video games, and this is where I want to start, one of the first video games that really spawned a big merchandising frenzy in the United States was Pac-Man. And obviously Pac-Man did a lot more than, how do I make it stop? Obviously, Pac-Man did a lot more than toys and stuff. I mean, come on, Pac-Man Fever. It had music, it had all kinds of crazy stuff going on.
Which, by the way, so I might be jumping the gun here, Dan, but you have a wonderful book up here called, by the editors of Consumer Guide, Pac-Mania, Top Strategies for Home and Arcade Pac-Man. And there's even the chorus, or
top strategies?
The lyrics to Pac-Man Fever right here.
Yeah.
This
is an amazing book.
Was that Buckner and Garcia?
It is.
Yeah.
It was published in 1982. I love it how it's got like the ring binding too. But it was published in 1982, and this book is just filled with all of this crazy merchandise for Pac-Man, but it's totally presented to you in a way that's like trying to push you to like buy it, which is really, really funny.
64 pages of just Pac-Man merchandise.
So I'm going to show you some of the scans out of this magazine. One of the first things on here, which is actually really, really cool. I love this. And if you have seen any of my stuff online, I did a video on the Pac-Man board game. There have been several board games based on video games, but Pac-Man is one of the coolest because they made the board look like the actual Pac-Man.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And the pellets are recreated as marbles, so you put these marbles all over the board, and then there are 4 players, so there's yellow Pac-Man, green Pac-Man, red Pac-Man, blue Pac-Man, and they all have teeth for whatever reason.
Like the game.
Right, just like the game. Just like you remember, they have teeth. But you actually go around the board and you chomp the marbles with the Pac-Man.
There was this period of time in like the 80s and 90s where a lot of games used marbles.
A lot of them did.
Not so much anymore.
No.
I think they had...
I think it's a choking thing.
Milton Bradley must have had stock in a marble company or something. But
I had pole position on board game.
Yes.
Were there
pole
marbles?
position.
No, but it was really, really action-packed and fast.
No, so believe it or not, I've actually played this. This is not a bad game.
No.
The thing that you might already, I'm sorry, I'm jumping the gun maybe, but what excited me about this game playing it is that you have the Pac-Men, and they don't just, you don't just pick up a marble and put it in their head. They go and they move up and you push down on it, and they chomp on the marble, and it goes into a compartment. It's pretty clever.
It was really neat. Yeah, there was like a hole basically in the mouth, and the mouth chomps. So when you rolled over the marble, it just you actually popped the marbles in. It was cool. It was very cool. But then you can see these awesome kids that are very, very excited about their Pac-Man pajamas and sweatshirts there, and this is where things get really funny in this catalog.
Oh, I should have brought my. I dressed as Pac-Man in kindergarten for Halloween, and it's the stapled on like frightening, nightmarish Pac-Man face, and then the.
You're talking about the
those
plastic
things.
mask with the.
With a bib?
No, and the thing that you're wearing is essentially like I think it's a picture of the playfield on it. Or
Oh
something.
wow!
Awful.
Oh, that's
That was
amazing.
great. Yeah.
Everybody had those Halloween costumes when they were young, though, right? With the plastic masks and the plastic little schmuck things that you wore.
That really, really strong elastic.
Yeah.
Stapled so lovingly to the plastic.
I love the guy in the middle with the tie. He looks like a winner. And we got the incredibly sexy woman who doesn't appear to be wearing any clothes except for the Pac-Man hats.
Well, that's
off
how
to
you
the
wear
right.
those. That's why you wear that hat.
And it doesn't stop there with the sexy, my friends, because now we have.
This makes me want Pac-Man stuff.
I know, right? That's exactly what they're after here. They're like.
Image 5 is a great butt shot with surprisingly tight-fitting Pac-Man PJs.
It's some amazing stuff, and it just cracks me up looking through this. Yeah, they got the woman in her long Pac-Man pajamas
Yeah.
there.
This
no
shoot was
pants
on a Monday afternoon.
Yeah.
The morning was the Van Halen video shoot,
It's amazing.
followed by the Centipede cereal commercial.
That's right. So following Pac-Man, we have the boom of Nintendo, and obviously this is where you got things like Mario that really, really takes off.
Sorry, it does look rather like Mario's leg is coming out of his crotch there.
You're absolutely correct.
I did not even realize that until you pointed it out. That's amazing. How many of you guys remember the Nintendo cereal system?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it had 2 bags of cereal in it. Half of it was Mario and half of it was Zelda.
It was like a giant nerds box.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was so sweet. Yeah. So the Mario cereal was fruity, the Zelda cereal was berry, but pieces that crudely resembled game sprites.
What were the sprites they were supposed to resemble? Do you know?
I don't actually know. But they rescued breakfast, according to Link.
It tastes super, too.
Some of the other things I got shown on here, the top row there are the Super Mario Bros. 3 McDonald's premiums. They came in the Happy Meals. You guys might remember those as well. I remember being so excited when I saw the commercial that there was Mario toys in the Happy Meals because, as I talked about earlier, one of the things I was sorely lacking in my playthings was Mario stuff. I wanted some Mario toys. So I had all 4 of these toys from McDonald's, and collector's pins and all kinds of stuff like that were also hitting the stores at the time. So
Yeah, it's strange in the late 80s and such, even almost up through today, is that there haven't been a lot of Nintendo toys as such. But I would have killed for like a Mario action figure or something in the late 80s. So those McDonald's toys were about the closest we could get.
yes.
And as a side note, the Koopa Paratroopa is by far the superior of the 4.
You didn't like the Goomba did flips.
He did
just like in the
flips,
video game.
But there was a little squeeze. There was a little squeeze thing on the back of the Koopa Paratroopa to make him go hop, hop, hop. Brilliant.
Yeah, and Luigi had the little wind-up thing that made him spin around in circles for whatever reason. He was out of control.
I'd also like
I
to
remember that
Yeah.
now. I remember spinning Luigi. Okay.
I'd also like to mention that these are surprisingly cheap on eBay.
Yes.
Like, never been opened condition. Like I got a Luigi or something for $3, I think.
I think children ate more Happy Meals back then because that's when
There'd
McDonald's
probably
was
be
wholesome.
tons
man.
of them, but
Well, so many of us went to McDonald's to get those toys in the Happy Meals.
yeah.
I mean, come on. But yes, serious lack of actual action figures. You really couldn't walk into a toy store and buy like a Mario action figure or a Zelda action figure, and certainly no Mega Man action figure when these games were out on the NES and they were really successful. There were, however, the closest that we could get kind of things were these awesome little PVC figurines, and these were great because Nintendo did put these out in stores. They were unarticulated, but at least it was something. And their big focus, obviously, Super Mario Brothers, and then there were a couple. I think there was one from Legend of Zelda, which was Link, and then they also did a King Hippo and a Little Mac from Punch-Out! These are very, very cool figures. These are a little more obscure now, especially the King Hippo and the Little Mac. There's not a lot of Punch-Out! Merchandise out there, and so those guys can go for quite a bit of money when they pop up online for sales. But those were some very cool toys.
Who put these out?
I don't actually remember. It's a company that does mostly like little PVC figurines. I want to say it was like Imperial or something.
But
it was
I mean, Nintendo with their licensing, they had to have
absolutely,
everything.
yeah. And they
license.
They actually came on little blister cards, and like the Zelda one had one that looked like Zelda game artwork on it. The Punch-Out! One looked like a boxing ring and everything, and then the Mario one just had like a cool blue background with the Mario logo. But they were very, very cool little toys. I had several of the Marios as a kid, but as you can see, they basically, like, there was one Luigi, and then there was like 7 different Marios, doing all these different things, shooting a fireball, climbing the vine, and all that kind of stuff.
Were these sold just in toy stores?
They were
basically?
sold in toy stores,
Okay.
yeah, toy stores or any store like that.
How the hell did I miss this now?
Yeah.
I think I actually had some of those Mario figurines. I distinctly remember the one with him climbing that really strange kind of green spike, which I guess
Yeah.
is supposed to be a vine, but whatever.
Right.
Ribbed.
One of the other things, this is a really cool one, and one that a lot of people don't really remember, and I've actually got one of them sitting up here. These are the Nintendo trophy figures. These were released by Hasbro in the late 80s during the big Mario boom, or the big Nintendo boom at the beginning. And they did 3 different styles of these, and several of them based on the 3 different games. So there was Super Mario Brothers, there was Punch-Out!, and there was Legend of Zelda. And the idea behind these, they called them trophy figures because they essentially depicted a scene from the game of sorts. I mean, you guys remember when Mario kicked that Koopa Troopa in the face? That's right out of the game.
Now, what in the world is he? Are those
yeah.
Goombas?
Yes, are these Goombas? I don't know. I think they're supposed to be Goombas. You guys can
Goomba
decide.
infants. This is inappropriate. Oh God.
Mario jumping on them. But if you see down there in the corner, there's a little sticker on these that says name, date, and high score. The way they marketed these was as actual trophies, and you were supposed to actually put your name, the date, and your high score on there and like award yourself or award your friends with a trophy for accomplishments in these games.
That's cool.
And they're very, very cool toys. They're getting harder and harder to find, especially the Punch-Out! Ones. Forget about it. The Punch-Out! Ones are insane because they were very cool. I mean, you have Mac fighting, Glass Joe, and there's a King Hippo one, and it's basically all the different fighters from the games. Really, really cool stuff. But I find these incredibly interesting now because they kind of feel like the predecessors to the Amiibos, which are the current kind of big thing on store shelves, which we're going to talk about a little bit more in a bit. But aside from these and those little PVC figures I showed you guys, the 80s didn't really have a lot of cool video game action figures. And these were neat, but they weren't what I wanted as a kid. I wanted something I could really play with and really recreate scenes from
And I think,
video
they
games.
missed a huge opportunity. I mean, I was not a crazy toy collector.
Right.
I didn't have a lot of G.I. Joes. I didn't have a lot of He-Man. But I would have loved to have had a Simon Belmont.
Right?
Yeah. That would have been great.
Yeah.
Because video games are the only things I played, basically. So
Yeah.
it would have been great to have something else to go along with it.
Absolutely. That's how I've always felt too. So we move into the 90s. And with the 90s, we get a lot of late 80s, and then in the early 90s, suddenly there are all these cartoons on TV based on video games. You guys remember the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, Captain and the Game Master, stuff like that. But as we get more into the 90s, we get series such as Double Dragon and Mega Man. And these cartoon shows finally gave us the opportunity to get some action figures based on these video games, except now they're based on the cartoons and not the actual video games. So it's like we're a little bit closer to getting what I wanted, but we weren't quite there yet. But I bought especially the Mega Man ones, because the one thing I always wanted the most as a kid was Mega Man toys. And
I definitely had some of those Mega Man figures. That is an angry looking Mega Man.
he's
though.
so angry and he's so buff. He has muscles. Yeah. Those Mega Man figures had a really great play feature, though, because as you can see, he had the interchangeable arm cannon, and he had a little Mega Buster shot that actually fired out of the cannon, and all the Robot Masters came with their own unique little weapon that Mega Man could steal and put in his Mega Buster and shoot it, which I thought was very clever to
awesome.
recreate, the whole weapon stealing thing from the game. But very fun toys, and there was lots of stuff like this kind of throughout the 90s.
What do those go? I mean, on the market, what do those go for?
So the Double Dragon stuff, fairly easy to come by now. They're decent figures. Billy and Jimmy are probably the most sought after because all the other characters were kind of created for the cartoon. They didn't really appear in the games, and obviously they got those weird green dragon tattoos on their chests and stuff like that. They have the masks and the swords, all stuff that you didn't really see except for in Double Dragon 5, which was based on the cartoon. But those are pretty easy to come by. These Mega Man figures from Bandai have kind of gone up in value quite a bit these days, especially if you want to find them complete with all the firing stuff and the mechanism, all that good stuff. So they're a little bit more expensive now. But very cool toys, actually. I actually really like those.
You're talking like $40, $50 range?
Maybe even more than that. Wow, I've seen some of the Mega Man stuff go around $60, $75 a figure if they've got all their weapons or they're still packaged.
Yeah.
Really kind of depends. I mean, obviously stuff on eBay is usually a lot more expensive than if you can go find it somewhere in person, but that's about what they go for online these days, I'd think.
Cool.
Some of the other stuff in the 90s, which I loved this. I always thought it was a little odd. We got Street Fighter II action figures courtesy of the G.I. Joe toy line. I don't know how this came about, but we got a whole series of characters from Street Fighter II in the G.I. Joe scale. As you can see, it actually is branded G.I. Joe, so they made them part of their line. They came with a ton of weapons, just like G.I. Joe, so they had swords and guns and all kinds of cool stuff, just like in Street Fighter, the video game. But also a lot of these guys, some of them had original sculpts, but a lot of them did just take sculpts from already existing G.I. Joe figures and kind of mashed them together to create these, which is why you see Blanca wearing pants, and Chun-Li's body is the same as Scarlet's body with a different head. So they did some stuff like that. Yeah, Ken has grenades and stuff strapped to his chest.
Yeah.
He always had those grenades on his gi and stuff. But I did love these.
Does this follow the G.I. Joe canon to the purists? I mean,
I don't know actually.
It's like, there was that Street Fighter II scenario that
I don't
happened
think
in the world
so,
of G.I. Joe.
but I probably not to the purists. I wouldn't say.
I'd love to see some Street Fighter II G.I. Joe fan fiction.
Yeah. Well, and they had vehicles in this line. They had a big play set, so they really went all out for this. It was just a little weird because it was like
G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe. It wasn't Street Fighter, but it was still really cool kind of getting some of these characters from Street Fighter in action figure form. And following right behind that, I forgot to put the picture in here, Mortal Kombat did the exact same thing. Right after the Street Fighter G.I. Joe line, there was a Mortal Kombat G.I. Joe line that was very, very similar.
That's
it was
amazing.
crazy.
That's sacrilegious. Cross-pollination there.
I'll tell you that, well, the best thing about that, though, is that you now had Street Fighter characters and Mortal Kombat figures done in the exact same style and scale of action figures.
Yeah.
So you can make them fight each other. Oh, it was cool. But moving on into the later 90s, we'd finally start getting some actual action figures based on video games. This is where things really kind of started taking off towards getting some real toys like I always wanted to see. And one of the big companies that did this in the late 90s was Toy Biz. They put out this whole series of toys that they labeled the video game superstars. So you can see all these boxes have that same video game superstars thing at the top. And they did things from Tomb Raider to Zelda Ocarina of Time, which were great because you can see Link comes with Epona and Zelda has got horse and everything there. We had the Mario Kart line, which is tremendous because they did every character from Mario Kart with their carts, and the figures were actual figures that could sit on the carts. The carts launched things like shells and stuff at each other. Talk about a line that has gotten really expensive now. That's one of them. It's very pricey now. They did a Marvel vs. Capcom line as well as a Marvel vs. Street Fighter line, so they were two separate things, but they did that line gave us action figures of guys like Strider and Captain Commando and Mega Man, and all kinds of cool characters in that line. They did an entire Resident Evil toy line, which is very cool and actually has gone up in value quite a bit these days. And even Lara Croft got herself an action figure for the first time thanks to Toy Biz. So Toy Biz really kind of like, I don't know, it was sort of like this whole renaissance of video game figures that are actually based on their video games. Like, we finally started getting some stuff. It was very, very cool.
What was Toy Biz doing a lot before?
Toy Biz did a lot of the Marvel toys. So if you guys all grew up with like the X-Men action figures, the Marvel superheroes action figures, in the late 90s, early 2000s, Marvel Legends was a huge line that they were doing. Toy Biz was actually a Marvel Comics toy company.
Oh, okay.
So that's what they were doing a lot of.
Do you have any idea why it took so long for toy companies to say, "Oh, these video games are popular. Maybe we should make some of these"?
I really don't. It's always something that is just it doesn't make sense to me, honestly. I mean, I know that I don't know if I always kind of wondered too if Nintendo was just a little more protective of some of their stuff too, and they didn't want to license it.
That's what I've heard, but then again, there's also like the Nintendo cereal system.
That's true. That's true.
I never
It's
quite
weird, 'cause
understood.
my guess would have been a disconnect between the fact that a lot of management and licensing decisions might have come not from Nintendo of America at that time or other toy companies. It would have been sourced out of Japan.
Yeah.
I
But then
think
it became far more.
I think it's still that way, actually.
Yeah, and then yeah, but I guess with a little more global now, they're able to make those licensing arrangements even. And,
Yeah.
and distribution.
The only other
within
thing I can
US.
think of is that in the late '80s, even as Nintendo was taking over the world, a lot of people in the West, especially maybe older toy companies, still thought of Nintendo or video games as a fad after the crash in the mid part of the '80s.
Could be.
I'm completely speculating.
Yeah,
Therefore,
I
it's
mean that's really all we
absolutely
can
true.
do.
I
mean,
yeah, because I'm guessing cartoon series and other more established IP probably had budgets aligned for
Right.
merchandising far more upfront and strategically than these
And-
guys might have been doing at that time. Just
And
because of that.
that's a good point too, because a lot of toy lines, especially this day and age, a lot of toy lines really rely on having media to back up the toy lines.
Yeah.
Cartoons and video games now. Maybe at this time, video games, they didn't really count as
Media?
viable media to support the toy line. The 80s was the huge boom of having toy lines based on cartoons.
Yeah, the game was the product itself.
Right, the game was the product. The game was a toy.
The game was the toy.
Was
yeah.
the toy, exactly. So I that's probably exactly what it was. It probably just took them a while to go. We could actually,
Yeah,
this
we're
works.
not
We can.
cannibalizing our own brand by doing this. You're not going to not buy the video game and buy the toy. Itself.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Oh, hey, I just put them out of order. There's those Mortal Kombat G.I. Joes. Did you? Yeah. They were actually slightly better than the Street Fighter ones, I thought, because they didn't have Sonya's got this massive cannon and everything, and some of them have swords and stuff, but I felt like these were a little bit more video game based than G.I. Joe based.
They're still cannibalized models.
They're a little bit better. These are actually a little bit more original sculpts, and they were able to reuse like Scorpion and Sub-Zero and Smoke and Reptile. It was all the same figure, just painted different colors. But these were not G.I. Joe branded. The Street Fighter ones were. The Mortal Kombat ones were not.
Oh, they weren't. Okay.
Right, but the bodies themselves are built exactly the same. They articulate the same way, so they fit right in. Okay, so let's jump forward a little bit. We're at modern day now, and you walk into a toy store now, the toy aisles are filled with video game merchandise and toys. There's whole sections at Toys R Us that are specifically for toys based on video games, and we're in an era now where app games and everything are what the kids are playing. And unlike what they did when we were kids playing video games, the toy companies are jumping on this, and they're making toys for all these kids who are obsessed with Minecraft and Plants vs. Zombies and stuff like that. And just as successful as those games are, these toys are wildly popular. I know from experience just by doing videos on some of these things and seeing the view counts that they get from all the kids that are watching this stuff because they like playing these games. So kids today have it a little bit better than we did because they're actually getting toys based on their video games.
Kids today.
They're getting videos based on the toys they like. My sister's husband has a nephew, and one day, just randomly at a family gathering, he was talking about how he loves watching Pixel Dan videos on YouTube. And I looked at him like, oh, you're going to think I'm so cool right now. I know him. And it's like, but yeah, I mean, I can see that.
That's awesome.
Videos based on toys, that'll never work.
Yeah, that'll never work. It's crazy. All right.
Oh, wow.
So now I'm going to start talking about some of the modern toys that are out there that I really, really enjoy. And they're doing some really crazy things. And I almost feel like some of these toy companies are trying to make up for the lack of stuff that we were getting back in the day when we were kids. And also, a lot of these guys that work at these toy companies now were kids just like us back then playing these games. So now they're making the toys that they wanted to see too.
And they're doing it kind of hipstery too. Like,
They really
I
are.
know. I mean, they're ironically releasing the Friday the 13th.
Yes. Yeah. So what you guys see here is a line of action figures from NECA Toys. And NECA Toys primarily does action figures based on a lot of these movies like Predator and RoboCop and the horror films and Rambo and Gremlins and stuff like that. They make very, very cool, very highly detailed action figures that a lot of collectors pick up. And within the last year, they started this really crazy idea where they were going to take a lot of these properties that they already had the rights to make action figures to and repainting them to look like their old NES video games. And they started the line with Jason in his awesome purple outfit and his crazy like glowy looking mask.
Sorry, I just have to ask, do you think, this is a stupid question, so everyone knows at least about the Angry Video Game Nerd and how Friday the 13th was one of his earliest and most famous reviews. Do you think that if that review never came out, we would have this figure?
Oh, probably not. I feel like a whole legend has been built around that
it's just
game
it's
because
so
of that.
funny to me that like it's like a weird circle jerky kind of thing where
really
it's like
is.
you have a toy line based off of an old crappy NES game that was only made popular again in the 2000s because of an internet video.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, he vocalized it. I think we all knew it though.
Yeah.
From that age group, I mean, we remember that game.
Right.
Oh, it was horrible.
I mean, we all
but it was scary.
yeah.
I mean, that was the one thing that I can say came away from that game, which would make me want the figure, was when he appeared on your screen.
In that purple jumpsuit.
In that purple jumpsuit. It was quite disturbing.
Yeah, I agree completely. That's got it. And same with all of this stuff, because a lot of these games are not good games, except for Batman. Yeah. But the way they're doing this line is just so fun, because the boxes that they come in look like the old Nintendo boxes. They're like in a replica of the old Nintendo boxes, but they have a flap that folds open, so there's a window box that fully showcases the figure, and above the figure they got like the health bars and everything from the video game. So it's very, very cool packaging that is aimed completely at us, you know, that loved or hated playing these old Nintendo games. And I think it's just a really fun and unique idea for a toy line, and it's been crazy successful. That Jason was an exclusive at San Diego Comic-Con, and it was meant to be just a fun, silly one-off figure. It's sold out at that show. It's now really valuable online, and because it was so successful, it just made them decide to keep going with this line and keep releasing these figures.
I actually didn't even realize it did anything beyond Jason. So the Batman one in particular from the NES Sunsoft game is...
The Batman one is even a unique story because for the longest time, people kept requesting the Batman. Like when NECA was doing this line, people were like, you got to make one of Batman. And NECA kept saying, well, here's the problem. We can't do Batman toys because we don't have the rights to DC Comics, because DC Collectibles makes their own action figures, and Mattel also has a license for DC, so we can't do Batman. Well, DC Comics liked this toy line so much that they came to NECA and said, we're going to let you guys do Batman. That's amazing.
That's pretty
like
great.
That's crazy that this line was so successful that they got a one-off like license just to do this one Batman figure. It's crazy.
The
question-
RoboCop looks good.
The
too. I remember
RoboCop's great.
The question is, how many people who played the original, who were kids playing the original Batman on NES at working at DC, were like, oh, I remember that game. Yeah, they need to do this. Let's give them the rights.
Yeah. And now they're getting a lot of all you got to do a Ninja Turtle, and that's going to be another problem because they don't. They did Playmates has Ninja Turtles, yep. And NECA did some cool comic-based Ninja Turtles years ago, like when Turtles was in a lull.
Yeah.
But since Turtles is huge again now and Playmates has full license, NECA can't do anything with those sculpts, so it's going to be rough. But it would be very cool to see a turtle in this style.
Yeah, like the Eastman and Laird version. I love those.
Painted like a Nintendo sprite. That would be so cool.
You got a question?
Yeah. I can't tell you the future ones.
But that means you know.
I know some. I'm actually pretty good friends with NECA. I'll tell you what, I do. Well,
I tweet them constantly when you put videos out, hoping they'll send me these. And
so Rambo in the front here, he's actually not even released yet. He's coming out at the end of this month, I think, or next month. And they also did Rocky based on the Sega Master System, which is the first Master System inspired one they've done. And actually, if you go to Toys R Us right now, they have Terminator versus RoboCop ones on the shelves based on the Super Nintendo game. And New York Toy Fair is next month, and they are supposed to be showing off like a whole new line of these video game toys.
So John and I are not nearly as connected in the toy world as you are, so we don't know crap. We can speculate. John, what do you think the next one will be? I'm guessing Marty McFly from Back to the Future.
That would be crazy. I keep pushing them to do a Gremlin from the Gremlins game because
From like Gremlins 2?
Yeah, from
That's
Gremlins 2.
Such a good game.
Yeah.
they're obviously pulling IP, third-party games. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
And movies based.
And it's kind of cool to speculate just based on some of the other toys that they make. That's why I think the Gremlin is inevitable because they did a whole line of Gremlins action figures.
Yeah.
They could easily repaint, Spike and make them like an NES style. I think that'd be awesome.
I mean, the Back to the Future one almost makes sense. It's 2015, so everyone's talking about Back to the
Right?
Future this year. People remember that game. It was an angry
You'd be
video
all
game.
over that one, wouldn't
I
you?
would get it. I don't
Looking
love
at
that
Dan,
game.
I'm trying to see if he has a tell or any kind of give.
Did he twitch?
I don't know a lot.
Yeah.
I'll know more soon.
But plus, no one else makes Back to the Future toys.
Here's the packaging. I should have shown that to you. So that's a sample of what the boxes look like for these. It's very, very cool. They even make it look all worn around the edges of
I
the
love
Nintendo
that.
box.
And how much do these run?
They're about $20.
Really? That's
They're-
only $20?
Yeah, only $20.
Wow.
And you can see they come with interchangeable hands and weapons and all kinds of cool stuff. So, but you don't even have to open them if you don't want to because the boxes are so cool that you can display them that way.
Well, I
if you
guess
want.
they assume some people will collect them just to keep them in the box. And
Yeah.
then you can still enjoy them by looking at them.
Yeah.
I would put them in another box and then put it on a shelf. That's because I'm a crazy person.
All right. So, we got a question. Yes. What's that? I'm sorry.
Series one.
They did do some Castlevania stuff. I haven't heard if they're going to do any more Castlevania because they did Simon, Dracula, Alucard, and Succubus, which were amazing figures. But I have not heard anything on a second series. I can ask. I'll find out. Yeah.
Tell them it's been requested.
Right here is a sample of some of the amazing figures we're getting now. And the thing about these is these are all mostly imports. But the good news is that a lot of these figures are a lot easier to get a hold of today. It's really easy to get a lot of these import toys because most of the online toy stores just stock them, and it's not overly expensive to get them. You will still pay a little bit more for a figure like this. I think Samus ran about $50 there. Mewtwo is probably about a $40 figure. Mega Man and Sonic there were both about $30, but they're some of the best representations we've ever seen of these characters in figure form. They come with multiple interchangeable parts. They have attachable, like get the beam coming out of Samus there. Mewtwo's holding a little blast. Mega Man came with Rush, which is awesome. Sonic has the little goal and the ring and all kinds of fun stuff. And they've done, this is lines like SH Figuarts, Figma, stuff like that. They did an amazing Link from Skyward Sword. They did Pit from Kid Icarus, which is crazy that we got a Pit figure. I often refer to these in the videos that I do as me building up my Super Smash Brothers collection. Because even though these figures are coming from some different companies, they're all great in scale with each other. They're some of the best representations that we've ever gotten of these figures, and they would totally work in a Smash Brothers style
Man,
display.
someone should really make some toy line based off of Super Smash Brothers.
Somebody
characters.
really should, right?
Yeah.
But these are, like I said, these are kind of import stuff, so they're a little bit more expensive. But if you're a big fan of these or you're a big toy collector, I really highly recommend these. However, there is a line that's in stores right now here locally in the U.S. from Jakks Pacific that they just started this last year called World of Nintendo. And you guys might have seen some of these. They did, the first wave was Mario and Yoshi and Link, and they did a big Donkey Kong and a big Bowser, so they're kind of to scale with each other. And they're not quite as good a quality as these, but they're $8 a piece as opposed to $50, and for only paying $8, totally worth it. Very cool line. And I know that I've also talked to them. I know that they've got a lot of stuff coming out this year for that line, so that's one to watch if you're a Nintendo fan. So that, on what Rue's comment just was, brings me to kind of what's become the new hotness these days, which is Nintendo's Amiibo line. This is kind of following, obviously, hot on the heels of stuff like Skylanders and Disney Infinity, where they kind of found a way to create little extra things that you have to purchase in order to keep playing the game, but it's not quite the same effect with this.
Yeah, I think it's generally called Toys to Life.
Toys
kind of
to
stuff.
Life.
Yeah,
I like that.
That's the phrase I've heard.
Right. So just in this last year, these have just kind of popped up, and they've become very, very popular very quickly. These are essentially designed after the little trophies that you get in Super Smash Brothers. I'll tell you guys straight up and honest, the reason I was excited about these was because I was getting some cool new toys of Nintendo characters. Not necessarily the interconnectivity with my Wii U game or anything like that. Mostly because we're getting some characters in toy form that I have never seen in toy form before. Guys like Star Fox. And Wii Fit Trainer? No, mostly Star Fox and stuff like that have been like long overdue for something in action figure form, in plastic
There's a Wii
form.
Fit Trainer?
There's a Wii Fit Trainer, and she's one of the hard ones to get right
I
now.
can imagine.
Yeah.
This is what's been so fascinating to me, because I look I look at these from a toy perspective, because I work a lot in the toy industry, and I, like I said, I love video games, but a lot of my stuff focuses on toys and collecting toys and all that stuff. And I've been watching these get so popular and so successful, and I'm watching all of these big video game sites reporting all these news stories about how
Gamergate.
some of these figures have become really hard to find, and suddenly, Little Mac or Marth especially, is selling on eBay for $60. And then there was also the whole thing with the final products not looking as good as the prototypes. Have you guys seen like some of those stories popping up? And I'm looking at all these like being reported as actual news on these gaming sites, and it's really weird to me because as a toy collector, I have been dealing with this for every toy line that has come out ever since I've started collecting. It is not news to me. And so it's really, really it's interesting to see all these gamers who are probably buying toys for the first time with the Amiibos, not really, it's kind of a thing where the prototype always looks better than the final product because the prototype is usually hand painted. It's not really kind of, in these, they've got like these little clear stands that are holding them up. Those probably weren't put on the prototypes. The clear stands were added later so that the figures didn't warp over time and fall over and stuff like that because they're in these crazy poses. So it's common for the prototype to look better than the final product. So it was just kind of funny to me to see people like reacting like that.
Yeah. So the thing, well, first off, when Nintendo announced these at E3 last year, if you follow video games at all, you know the Wii U is a mildly struggling platform right now. But when Nintendo came out with this, announced this, even though, as you said, it's not an amazing amount of functionality with Super Smash Brothers is what these are specifically made for.
Yeah.
It's I just thought to myself, well, Nintendo is going to be printing more money, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
Because exactly what you said and what we said before is Nintendo has not really had at least a consistent amount of toys for their characters,
right.
And a lot of ones here that are popular that never even had toys. Well, maybe not like Wii Fit Trainer, but like Pit from Kid Icarus, or
yep.
even Marth, which is from actually
Marth, and we're going to be getting
Japanese game,
Olimar and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like all these crazy characters.
But and Duck Hunt Dog, which I'm actually really excited
Duck Hunt
for.
Dog, yeah, right.
Like 5 years ago, if someone had come up to you and said, "Hey, there's going to be a toy for Duck Hunt," and people are going to be going crazy over it.
Yeah.
You'd be like, what? but something about the whole stand controversy or whatever is that I thought was amusing is Chris Kohler from Wired had a great point about these models, is that rather obviously the designers of Super Smash Brothers basically came up with these poses for the various characters to put in the game because they're like little virtual trophies that you get in the game every time you beat the game with a certain character. And then they took those models and just transposed them directly to this toy line. And some of them, like Link there, who is literally hopping in space on one foot, is a little bit hard to get stable, as a toy. So of course they're going to need a stand to make them more robust. And supposedly that was a horrible thing, and they looked terrible, and people were complaining. To me, I'm not even a big toy guy, but I'm like, that's acceptable. I mean, I heard all the stuff about, oh man, these things are terrible coming off the line. They look nearly as good. And I only have one amiibo right now. I'm sorry, I'm not a terrible or a great collector, but it's a peach. So it's one of the more, there's a little more finer details, but it looked really good to me. I was actually very impressed.
Yeah.
But also going back a few slides from what you had before with like the Samus and the Sonic ones, those are being held up by stands too. Just because something in a toy is being held up by stands doesn't necessarily mean it's of poor quality. I didn't quite understand why that was such a horrible thing.
I didn't either. I really didn't. And then the other thing that I saw a lot with the amiibos, or have seen, is there's been a few factory errors. And there was that
makes them cooler.
Samus. There was a Samus with 2 arm cannons that sold on eBay for hundreds of dollars.
To be fair,
because
that's
it was
super awesome.
It was a mistake. Yeah,
a legless
It was a
peach.
cool. Yeah, legless peach.
Didn't that go for a lot?
Yeah. And that's another one of those things where I'm just like, man, that just happens in toy. I mean, like, not everything's going to come off perfect. And I saw so many, like, nasty comments on some of those big game sites like Kotaku and everything where people are like, oh, Nintendo needs to watch their quality control because one Samus came off with 2 arm cannons. It's we're human. We're going to make some mistakes sometimes.
Well, it's
and
funny to watch, like, obviously an established fan base, an established industry of toys. You have people who are familiar with this, but then watching an entirely different journalistic group get their hands on toys and then try to take some sort of ownership over it and then and mandate certain things. It's fantastic.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But it's exciting to me about the amiibos is that, I mean, they launched with Super Smash Brothers and they're constantly coming out in waves, but Nintendo's keeping this going with other game series. Some of them are more obvious up front, like Mario. They're coming up, of course, with another line of Mario amiibos beyond these that were made for Smash Brothers. There's one for like Mario Party. There's one for Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, I believe, which
and
is
they're
a
all going to
cute
have
little
in-game
game.
functionality. with
Yeah,
these.
and they'll have different in-game functionalities. Not anything major, but the point is that Nintendo fans are some of the most rabid fans out there, and they will buy this, even if it's limited functionality.
Yep, absolutely.
That's why Nintendo will print money on this.
So-
I like it
if
better
they're
than
smart.
microtransactions and downloadable content. I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah, because at the end of
is
the
cool.
day, it's something extra you have to pay for, but at least you can put it up on the shelf and it looks cool.
Yeah.
Right, it's like a cool collectible from your video game that also works with your video game. I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've seen how big Skylanders and Disney Infinity have been, and these have been selling well. This has been a debate a lot of people have talked about. Like, do you think this is kind of the future of all games? Is this going to be a direction that all video games are going to take, is having these additional pieces to buy?
I think it's going to be, I mean, from the way things are turning far more mobile, I think this will be important for some aspect of console gaming.
Mm-hmm.
I think this will add that other missing element that differentiates it or makes it something sought after when it's just so simple to pick up your smartphone.
Right.
Yeah.
I do think this whole Toys to Life thing is mildly faddish. The first game, series really to make it explode was Skylanders, which is based off of Spyro the Dragon, which most people don't even know about outside of Skylanders. They don't even. It's not even really around Spyro now. It's just other stuff. And the reason that was so successful is because it's a neat new concept. And then Disney Infinity did something, and the reason why that was successful is because it continued that concept and it used like Disney and Marvel characters
And
that
Star
people
Wars
know,
soon.
and Star Wars coming up.
Yep.
So I mean, they have a tremendous amount of IP that people again will pay. Disney collectors are definitely a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
True.
That's interesting. I was going to ask that question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right.
And these function a little bit differently, and some would say, "Oh, I don't even know why I should buy them because it doesn't unlock anything in the game." But they are selling really well, mostly because it's Nintendo and it's something new from them, and they have a great fan base. If it was anyone else coming up with a line of new Toys to Life figures like Halo or something like that, that doesn't have that crazy fan base, necessarily, I don't know if it would work. I don't know if there's going to be another big Toys to Life line
Yeah.
that will really hit it big after the Amiibo
Now,
craze,
These
necessarily.
things are blown. I mean, these things have blown up substantially. Especially, I was in New York City at Christmas time. I saw the Nintendo store and how psychotic it was. And Amiibo, that was the thing. But what do you think the demos are on this? I mean, is it? We all know that we love this stuff and we're like man children because of it. But what about? I mean, are children really into this? Because they are trying to grab a market of children. Like I look at my 3-year-old playing on the iPhone. I'm like, how am I going to get him to play a console? Well, if I threw an Infinity Mickey in front of him or something, he might want to put that down and actually go through the process of using a console.
I think, well, then that's getting more into a conversation about the whole demographic of Nintendo, which for a while now, at least to me, seems to be kids and adults who played Nintendo, which is a lot of people. But it's not like, somewhere in the middle there, and I think we probably all went through it too, when you reach those teenage years, it's like, Nintendo isn't as cool anymore. And then after you graduate college and you have memories and disposable income, it's like, hey man, Nintendo was awesome. I need to get these games. And of course we're retro gamers, so we're a little special there, but in the head. So I would say that probably kids and adults, but maybe there's a gap in the middle of people that aren't going so crazy for the Amiibo.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have many 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds that are like, I need to get every Amiibo. Not to say there aren't some, but I would say that is probably...
He told me that about a week ago. He has every Amiibo.
we discussed that yesterday. Probably the exception.
So how many of you guys out there are collecting the Amiibos? Are any of you guys buying them? Yeah? Are you guys buying them to use them with Smash Brothers? Yeah? Well, only 2 of you said yes. The rest of you guys are just buying them? Yeah, you're like me. See, that's like when I saw these revealed, I think I even tweeted immediately, and I remember Pat just responding, "Yeah, you would," because I was like, I'm excited. I'm most excited about Amiibos because new toys.
You said you have all but 2, right?
I have all but 2, but I've got the other ones pre-ordered. I just got Little Mac was the most recent one I got, which is awesome. Little Mac, more punch out stuff is great. I think it's really exciting, and I like it, and I think it's cool to see it being so successful. I have a feeling that they will be producing more of these too. Everybody's really rushing right now trying to get some of these rare ones, but if this goes like most toy lines that are like this, especially these bigger lines, I mean, Nintendo's a big company producing this big line. I wouldn't be surprised if they're rare now because everybody rushed out and bought up the initial stock, but once they go into a new production run on everything, they're going to be readily available.
Well, also in a lot of ways...
Did they discontinue some?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, see,
There's no official
with toys don't usually get discontinued too often, not individual characters at least. This is probably looked at as an entire line. And I don't know if they're doing them necessarily in series. Most toy lines do series 1, series 2, series 3 kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So they might eventually stop cutting out some of the early series stuff, but usually what toy lines do is they start building some of those earlier figures into later waves. So you start seeing them come back again.
That's a good point. So they are doing this in waves. Nintendo has said that they have stopped producing some of the early stuff that are obviously hard to find. Marth, Wii Fit Trainer, Villager was all wave 1, but they stopped making those for the time being. And there are others that they're just continuing to make because they believe will be higher sellers.
Yeah.
Mario, Peach, Pikachu. But the thing is that in a lot of ways, Nintendo is a rather conservative company. They're not going to go, balls to the wall and say, "Oh my God, let's make 10 million of every figure, and we're going to ride this gravy train to Hades or whatever." They'll
Gravy
say
train to Hades.
But I mean,
This is so great. Now it's not great.
and, but they'll look at Wii Fit Trainer like, "Oh, she's not going to sell as well. Let's make a few thousand of those and see what happens." It sold out ridiculously fast, and now they're like, "That did well. We'll do some more later." And I think they have actually confirmed. They've already confirmed that they're going to redo Marth, which is one of the most popular ones that is in limited edition because there's a new Fire Emblem game coming out later in the year, and they want people to use that amiibo
for the Fire Emblem.
for a
game.
Fire Emblem.
I want to, real quick before I answer you guys' questions, I want to run off of what he just said. And this is a common thing in toy lines, too, that a lot of times they will produce less of a character that they consider less popular and more of the characters that they consider the heavy hitters. And retail stores have a lot more dictation on stuff like this than you guys realize. Retail probably said to Nintendo, okay, but we need this many Marios, this many Links, and this many Donkey Kongs because people know who those are and we want to make sure people can get those. It's very, very possible that happened. Because you look at stuff like, good example, the Ninja Turtles toy line. You can always find Mikey, Leo, Don, and Raph on the shelves because retail says, look, we have to make sure that kids can come in here and buy the Turtles anytime they want to. And then it makes it a little bit harder to find some of the other secondary characters. I'm willing to bet that's exactly what's going on with the Amiibos. They probably produced less of Wii Fit Trainer and Marth and Villager because they're not as popular as Mario and Samus and
Now,
Link.
so I guess I have a couple questions as a follow-up to that. Who's producing these? Is Nintendo producing these in-house, or are they outsourcing
I
manufacturing?
do not know that. I assume they have a subcontractor.
But they're
somewhere.
managing the distribution. They own the distribution
Yes.
for it. So I'm guessing they're in a new position of battling for shelf space against established competitors on the toy shelves. I mean, video game shelf, that's one thing, but actually getting the shelf space. So I'm sure that they have to go limited, they have to go popular, and then they're going to have those limited runs of the not so, established characters.
Right.
I think it's interesting to know that Nintendo has said that if they do discontinue any of the figures, then they'll release a card version of the Amiibo that will still be.
That's true too.
But
Just-
the problem with that, though, goes with what the poll I just took in here. How many people actually want their actual figure and don't care if they can use the Amiibo with their games? That's the problem, I think. Yes, red shirt.
As you were saying, Nintendo's in this arena where they have to, from what I've heard, pay for the shelf space for these Amiibos. Now, I never saw a Villager or Marth. They didn't have any problems with those. But shortly before the holidays, I went into my local Toys R Us. We fit trainers were clogging up the place. I should have, but didn't buy them. They were on sale. You would have gotten 3 for the price of 2.
wow.
Next week, the scarcity scare comes up.
And then everybody ran out and bought them.
Some of them get the weirdo characters. I went back 2 weeks later, out of easily a dozen Wii Fit trainers, they were all gone.
And I'm willing to bet that the scarcity is somewhat pumped up by speculators.
Could be.
Because they know the same things that we all do. Nintendo fans are crazy, and Nintendo's conservative. And if a Marth is suddenly hard to find, they can sell one for $100 on eBay. And scalpers are a fact of life.
The scalpers, yeah.
That sort of frenzy for Nintendo. They had a stagnant bit of shelf space. Wii Fit trainer. As soon as that scare came along,
They unloaded them all, yeah.
So they're selling these in the toy aisles at Toys R Us.
They're like in the video game section,
Yeah, it looks
right
like
next
in
to
the
the.
I mean,
Yeah.
Not just Toys R Us and not just toy stores, but Kmart and Walmart, yes, but
Walmart
also
and
Best
Target.
Buys.
Okay.
Anywhere you find these other Toys to Life things. The thing I find amusing though is like I go into a Target, I see a giant display with crap loads of Skylanders and crap loads of the same character almost, like the same 4 or 5 characters of Disney Infinity, and it's a relatively small shelf space for the Amiibos, which again leads me to believe that somewhere, whether it's the toy stores or the stores or Nintendo said, let's be a little, just be a
wait
little
and
cautious, see what happens,
Yeah.
so maybe that'll
It's
expand.
it's a somewhat new space. I mean, having those shelves, having those areas in
Yeah.
the video game section.
It's new for Nintendo.
Yeah, it's new for Nintendo, and there's probably established contracts and arrangements with those other groups, so they have to just slowly get in. Yeah.
Yes.
I think that the scarcity thing actually kind of works on their end as well, not only for the figures themselves, but the future figures to come out. I had a friend, first actually, the promo for Amiibo is Amiibo.
All right. So the plural for Amiibo is Amiibo, in case anyone was curious. Officially.
What is the? I understand the me, but what is the bow for?
It's like Amigo, but for your me. It's like your me friend.
All right.
Get it?
Okay.
All right.
So after the scarcity era with Mark and the Villager, the trainer, I had a friend as soon as way through now, so went out and pre-ordered 6 shelf figures.
Oh yeah.
Crazy for order once. Because
And I want one.
Well, and that's exactly what's happening. I'm seeing places like the online toy stores, like Big Bad Toy Stores, one that I frequent often, and they've been putting up pre-orders for the amiibos, and the pre-orders sell out instantly. Like they put these pre-orders up and they're gone. So I think you're right. Like people are scared now, and they want to get all these figures, so they're buying everything now, and they're pre-ordering everything just to make sure that they get them. Yeah.
What about one crazy guy who bought a load of Rosalinas? Did you hear about
I did not hear about this.
this guy? He's a legitimate head case. He spent thousands and thousands of dollars buying Rosalina amiibo in bulk because he didn't want other people to buy them.
Oh my.
He doesn't like the character and doesn't like Nintendo forcing her.
Are you serious? Oh my. That is over the top.
That's disturbing because
That's-
Rosaline is awesome.
Yeah, that's awful.
Especially in Mario Kart 8.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, right? A temper tantrum. Any other questions about amiibos or any toys in general? Anything you guys got? Nope. All right, you guys. Oh, right here?
It's a very cliche question.
Sure.
What would you consider, I'll read you if you want to answer, your favorite toy that you had since you were young or that you either have saved? Did you even save or were you like,
Do you just want to go toy in general or like video game? Like,
Like
memory of a Nintendo kind of thing or any kind of
oh, it's so tough because I have so many toys.
yeah, I know.
I have been
So the question was like, what's our favorite toys
favorite
basically
toy
growing
or
up?
like most cherished kind of toy or something like that. Yeah, so I'm a longtime Masters of the Universe fan. I'm a big He-Man fan. And my favorite action figure from that line as a kid that always went with me everywhere was Mosquitor. So I would definitely claim him as my all-time favorite, along with just He-Man himself, because He-Man is just, I don't know, that whole thing, just what he represents and everything is very special to me. So I would name that as my favorite thing, for sure.
I always felt like I missed out on the cycles. Like, so from nursery school through second grade, I'd show up and I'd see all these kids playing with Super Friends characters.
Yeah.
Next day I'd show up with Super Friends and they'd be playing with He-Man. And then the next day I'd show up with a He-Man and then they'd...
You were just behind on the
and I was
times?
just behind and I said, fuck these things. Sorry, bad language. I apologize.
That's okay.
And,
yeah.
So my favorite toy is my Atari 5200.
I like
Yes,
it.
behind on the times on that one too. I don't know. I went in spurts of what I like really would love. So like Ghostbusters toys, Ninja Turtles toys,
yeah.
and even
Turtles.
Power Rangers for a little bit.
Nice.
I was just young enough to kind of be interested in the first wave of Power Rangers stuff, and then I was out of it. But the Legos, which I don't know if it really.
Legos.
I mean, it's not
Legos
it's
are
not an
good.
action figure or anything, but Legos are kind of timeless.
everybody
and
loves
awesome.
Legos.
I mean, I just got they released a Nintendo. I'm sorry, what? They released DeLorean from Back to the Future
Yeah.
in Lego form, which I had to get. They just released that.
Yeah.
It was amazing because
Yeah,
you can convert it into any of the three from the
I
movies.
know. I just built one. My boy's sitting there next to me. He's like, the flying one. I'm like, okay.
Oh, yes.
You should.
Yes. Yes. Plastic to Pixels is my video series I tried to start doing where I switched it up and started doing a video series about video games that were based on action figure lines. And I started with He-Man because, yeah, Barbie. Yeah.
Like a Barbie game.
I want to keep doing that show. I do so. It is a little bit more work doing the video game reviews and the toy reviews because of all the footage you have to capture and everything. And I do so much, but I have so many ideas for it. So yes, the plan is to keep doing it, and hopefully I get the ball going here
Two
soon.
G.I.
And-
Joe games on the NES.
yeah, on the Atari too. There's one on the Atari that's awesome. Yes. Oh my gosh, no, I don't.
There might be one in my parents' basement, but
I'm sorry. I really wish I had a good answer for you, but I don't know where to check. I'm sorry.
my sister had one. I have to go check now.
Oh, well, John might have one for you.
Might have
He
one.
needs to go check.
Oh, I don't know. I know. My sister loved it, so it has to be sitting somewhere. in
VTech
the
Video
basement.
Painter. I never had that.
I vaguely
no.
remember it.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was like a little.
I never
pen
had that
stylus.
though. Yeah, that's awesome.
Was there another question? Oh, well, we can.
Oh, we
go
can talk
back.
about amiibos. Yeah, amiibo. Yeah. Right. It's more like a figurine or a statue. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, use them for your game.
So that's a good point.
That
so
is interesting.
Yeah,
Mhm.
whoever didn't hear the question is, or not really question, but more statement is like this is the gentleman believes this is maybe more of a fad because these don't articulate. They're more like figurines than action figures, and kids will be bored or not even want them in the first place. That's a good point. So I'll amend what I said before. I do think kids will be somewhat interested in these, but these are probably more for like post college folks who are Nintendo fans, because those are the types of people that are like, I just want a figurine that I can put on my trophy case or whatever, because they don't have the time to like go pew pew.
Yeah. Well, and the price point is a good point too, because just toys in general these days are so much more expensive than they used to be. I mean, it's a lot more expensive for them to manufacture toys now, and cost of oil and all that stuff. So that's why they're. I don't know. I really don't. I mean, when we were kids, we were buying toys for $3 to $5 a pop, and now the going rate for an action figure is $10 to $15. It's sometimes 20.
But
It's rough.
But with inflation, I mean, how much were Ninja Turtles when we were a kid?
They were about $4 or so, 4 to 5,
Really?
I'd say. I think about $4.99.
I thought they were like 6 or 7.
No.
Okay, well, regardless,
4 to 5.
Well, even with inflation, it's closer to 10 now. So it's. I mean, an amiibo goes for 13.
I'm wondering if
I don't know.
the demos for this, like one of the questions was, I'm wondering if not just game collectors or toy collectors are buying these, or children. Are there,
Speculators?
mothers or remember the Beanie Baby thing?
The Beanie Baby thing.
Yeah.
My aunt bought a ton of Beanie Babies.
And those are worthless now, by the way.
Yeah.
And people who are outside the realm of the normal consumer of this kind of good, they can get fickle really fast and get bored. And
Yep.
I'm wondering if that will happen with this, or are we saying, these are toy collectors and game collectors buying these things.
Oh, there's definitely some speculation.
Yeah.
Going on.
All right. I think that's it. We're about out of time, guys. So I want to thank you guys very much. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you guys for coming out, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the show. We have a retroware table over there in the dealer room, so if you guys want to stop by and see us or talk more toys, I'd be happy to do it with you. Okay. Thanks, guys. See ya.